Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Today I have with me Chanin, who is a professor who transitioned into tech, and we're gonna have a great chat with him today. Welcome, Chanin.
Thank you, Vincent, for having me here.
Cool. Yeah, so let's start off. Chanin, do you mind giving us a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Chanin, and currently I'm working in tech as a senior developer advocate. And prior to that, I worked for 15 years in the university as a professor, um, doing research about like applying machine learning to discover new drugs. And I also teach and do research. And I've been an administrator for about 10 years to being the head of the Center of Data Mining,
Mhm.
where my responsibility is to uh, manage a group of about 10 professors and researchers into like working in biomedical informatics. And prior to that, I did my PhD in medical technology, where I learned about machine learning, data mining, before it was called data science. Um, yeah, prior to that, I have a bachelor's in biology, and yeah, never expected that today I would be in tech.
Wow, that's amazing. You have a lot of experience in this field. Yeah, so I was just curious, like you said you were a professor and you're teaching and all that. How do you like compare like becoming like getting a job as in tech compared to like being a professor? Like what do you like and what do you not like about it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, what I like about tech is that like things are happening so much faster. Like, and there's also a lot of things that like I have to learn, and I like learning. So kind of like like what growing up, I love gadgets. I like to play with new tech gadgets. I would hang out in like IT malls in Thailand and in the US,
Hmm.
like Fry's Electronics or like Best Buy. I guess that kind of resonate with me. Like in academia, it's also fun that you get to do research and also teach. But sometimes it's going slow, and so not as fast paced as in tech.
Hmm. Cool, yeah. So you did a lot of like data science kind of work. I was just curious, like for the audience that wants to get into data science, what would your recommendation be?
Right. Yeah, so like I actually have I could share this. I drew this infographic and I shared it on Twitter,
Wow.
and I kind of analyzed like a lot of the job openings in data science. And so these are some of the major topics that I see in the field of data science. So kind of like this like the landscape of data science. And so as you'll see, like there's so many technical topics here, but then there's also something on soft skill and also domain knowledge. So I believe
Mhm.
like everyone, like no matter what background you're coming from, like for myself, I'm coming from biology. Um, you could come from finance or economics or political science. You'll have this unique, like unfair advantage that is unique to you. And there are others, like if you have like high school level math and statistic, I think that is quite enough for you. And everything
Mhm.
else you could pick up and learn over time. And I guess it's persistence.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I think one thing that people get shied about like data science or computer science, tech, etc., is this whole notion of being good at math. Do you think people
Mhm.
need to be, expert at math to do data science or anything like that?
Right. Yeah, so like unless you're inventing or formulating a new algorithm in machine learning, yeah, you have to be superb in mathematics. But if you're like a practitioner in data science, like most of the things that you're working on, they're abstracted in Python libraries like NumPy, SciPy, and scikit-learn. And if you could figure out how to use these commands and functions and methods, then I think you're good to go.
Nice. So would you say like it's just like a training kind of thing, right? Like if, for example, if someone wants to do construction, they do the training and then they build a house. Is that something similar as well?
Yeah, there are best practices like in data science and machine learning. Like for example, to build a model, there's like this general step of like data understanding, domain understanding, and
Hmm.
like data preparation, and then model building, and then model interpretation, and then kind of like
Yeah.
reiterating the loop.
Cool, cool. Yeah, yeah. So you said you were a developer advocate, right?
Mhm.
Do you mind explaining what that is to the audience?
Right. Yeah, developer advocacy or like, like developer relations is, in my opinion, is practically the middle person between the developers and the open source or the company that are
Uh-huh.
developing the software products. So more or less, it's
So,
like you're creating content to educate developers for them
mhm.
to be successful in how to use the product or software, and how you could translate or transfer the pain points from the developers to the open source project so that they could like develop features to answer the pain points.
So how do you think your skills, as a professor slash data scientist slash content creator help you, get into a developer advocate role?
Right. So, like if we're looking at the superficial level, you might see that being a professor and being a developer advocate is quite different. But
Hmm.
then if you look under the hood, it's quite similar. Like for one thing is more or less like professor plus YouTuber for me is a developer advocate. So some of the skills that were transferable are like writing. Like when I was a professor, I had to write research grants proposal, like
Hmm.
asking for money to do research.
Yeah.
I publish, so write research articles, book chapters, and so that translates very well to being a developer advocate where I'm writing a lot of blog posts, I'm creating content like YouTube videos. So that came, like directly from my experience making content on YouTube. And yeah, I guess it's more or less like preparing presentation. Like I guess it's a very general skill, but
Hmm.
kind of like being an instructor or teacher. It's like what is the expected learning outcome for the student? Like when you're teaching, what do you expect them to learn about, and how could you prepare your own learning material in order to confer that? And after you have taught the student, how do you measure that the students, like understood what you're talking about, and how you could
Hmm.
reiterate that to improve your content creation? So that was like from like from teaching, and they have a lot of like the rubric
Hmm.
scale for figuring out like the course evaluation, and so that directly transfers to particularly written content creation. And
Yeah.
YouTube is more or less into the tutorial content creation, like video content creation as well. Yeah, so I
Okay.
guess it's more or less transferable from what I've done to now.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, as a professor slash dev advocate, like if you wanted to help someone break into, let's say, data science, what kind of path or like what would you tell them to study or learn to reach that?
Mhm. Right. Yeah, there's several paths, I guess. It really depends on what are your like current skill sets. Are you already familiar with programming? Like if not, then learn Python or learn R.
Hmm.
Get some exposure because like many of the things that you'll probably do in data science will be based upon like the one of the learning platform language platform like R or Python. Um, like for example, if you're building machine learning models, if you already know Python, you could then build models using like scikit-learn or TensorFlow for deep learning. Or if you're into like language processing, then there are packages like Spacey. For numerical processing, there are packages like NumPy, and scientific like SciPy. Data visualization, yeah, like Matplotlib, Seaborn. Web application like Streamlit, Shiny. Yeah, so it's like many of the things that you probably are doing in data science will be based on a programming language. So I would recommend to start learning programming language like R or Python, and yeah, everything will come to you. Because as you become curious, you want to find out more, and you learn and build upon that. So it'll be like an onion. So you'll grow layer by layer.
Nice, nice. I guess like there's software engineering and data science. Would you say you as a data science you need to be as good as coding as a software engineer, or like that doesn't really matter?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess it's kind of like solving problems. It's more or less about solving problems, and it's more or less kind of like the problem or project that you're working on. What does it entail? And if you have a general idea of like the target, like audience or the target customer of your project, then you could customize that project to deliver the results that the customer or stakeholder are expecting. It might be different for different fields, like if it's data science, if it's software engineering, or if it's academia. Yeah, like the output will be different. Like in academia research, it could be like, okay, the output could be like do a machine learning model and like write about the findings. In tech, it could be like to build the machine learning model and like create a tutorial. So it really depends on that, and I guess it's quite similar. And to which extent it's very dynamic, and um, I trust that the audience, as they're exploring into the learning process, um, they'll be in the zone, and then they'll make judgment based on the information at hand.
Mm, right, right. That makes sense. Cool. Do you mind sharing what a day in your life looks like?
Right. So if it's currently, so yeah, I wake up and like prepare for the day and send my daughter off to school, come back, have breakfast, do some coding, do some. It could also be like content creation, write blogs, like write Twitter threads, yeah, engaging with the community on Twitter and LinkedIn, and also yeah, like creating coding projects, and then like filming tutorial videos for the company YouTube channel,
Mm,
and in the late nights for my own YouTube channel as well, and yeah, doing podcasts like this in the late night, and yeah, and then call it a day.
nice, nice. Sounds like a busy schedule. So yeah, you mentioned you have a YouTube channel, a Twitter, LinkedIn. Yeah, do you mind like telling us more about what each one is about?
Yeah, sure. So my YouTube channel is called Data Professor, and it's about data science and bioinformatics, tutorial videos, and also from time to time I might have like videos that are providing advice, like how to break into data science, how to learn data science,
Hmm.
and occasionally when I do lectures on bioinformatics, I would, like ask the host if I'm able to share it, and if they're okay, then I'll share it. So recently, I've shared on YouTube a 2 hour long video lecture
Wow.
about like breaking into like computational drug discovery, and yeah, I have a second YouTube channel called Coding Professor, so
Uh-huh.
that's more coding specific. Twitter, I also go by the Data Professor ID handle. And then recently I've changed to my full name because before, yeah, my full name is Chanin which is quite long.
Uh-huh.
And therefore I kind of like thought about like what would I call myself that the audience would, recognize. I mean, Chanin would be like too difficult. So data professor, because at the time I was a professor,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm doing work on data. So data and professor.
Cool. Yeah. I'm not really super familiar with data science and stuff like that, but like, how does a general like interview process like work for data science?
Yeah. So based on my experience in academia, because I haven't really worked as a data scientist role.
Hmm.
So when I was a professor, like interviewing new research assistant or researchers or new faculty staff, like a lecturer or a postdoctoral fellow, or for a new role in like doing research in machine learning,
Hmm.
with respect to biomedical informatics. Yeah, so like the typical interview process is kind of like, yeah, the interview itself, but then before that, they would submit a application and their CV,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so typically I would scan through their CV, look at their, like list of publication, what they've done, where like how many or what are their impact in terms of their research. And then if the publications and research that they're doing looks promising, then we invite them over for the interview. And yeah, mostly we're done pre-COVID, which I
Mm-hmm.
was involved with. So yeah, it was on-site interview. So we spent about 2 to 3 hours, no, 1 to 2 hours talking, and they would start by like presenting like what they have done before, what research projects that they were involved with. And yeah, we talked about several things like what are some of the things that they would do at our university if they were given the chance, and then we reassess all of the candidate afterward, and yeah, select the best candidate for the position. So nothing like tech where you do like technical interview. It's more or less
Mm-hmm.
like screening through the CV, which is different than a resume. A CV will be more extended and it'll consists of a list of publications. Yeah, because like in academia, the KPI or the key performance is measured from the research articles that they've published.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right, cool. Super interesting question. If you were to redo your career again, do you think you would still go into the professor route, or would you think you would rather go into the industry earlier?
Right, that's a great question. Like when I was in the fourth year of my biology program, I had a thought of, like switching to computer science.
Mm-hmm.
But then I decided not to because I did not want to kind of like start over, because I had to redo at least 2 to 3 years of coursework, and it was like 1 year away from graduating.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the crazy thing is, and then eventually, like 20 years later, I, you know, got into tech. I wouldn't have known, like I wouldn't know what life would be like in a alternative universe where I made the switch to computer science and do 3 more years and graduate. I probably wouldn't have learned about bioinformatics. No, I
Mm-hmm.
would because I had 3 years already of biology. Um, yeah, but I'm not sure the path would converge with the current one. So that's an interesting question. Um, yeah, but I guess I wouldn't do anything different than what I've done because I wouldn't be here today, right? I would be another version of myself, which I'm not sure who that would be.
Yeah.
Would I still make content on YouTube? Would I still, be a developer advocate, or would I go into another area of computer science? I really don't know, but yeah, this path works for me, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Okay, yeah, awesome. Quick question. Do you mind like sharing a bit more about your job? We know you make content for as a developer advocate. Do you mind like sharing a little bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. I make contents like tutorial videos, like how to like use the library. The company that I'm working at is more or less focused on a web framework library, where
Mm-hmm.
it allows you to build like web applications. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to, like share
Oh, yeah.
the company name, but yeah, generally it's like creating tutorial videos and writing blog posts on how you could use that Python library to make web applications. So yeah, that's generally what I do.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So you mentioned you're from Thailand. Are you currently working for a company in Thailand or like a more like remote company in another country?
Right. Yeah, so I'm working remotely from Thailand for a company based in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a big tech company right now. And prior to that, it was a startup company in the US as well. So yeah, like the timing here is quite different. And yeah, like most of my meetings are at night, which
Yeah,
translates to like early morning in the US.
nice, nice. How do you feel like being like remote working for like another country in a different time zone?
Yeah, so. I guess it's kind of like, like the pandemic is changing the way we work. Before, I would read about like digital nomads and like how you could work from anywhere in the world, and like
Yeah.
it's becoming the new way of working. Like even before joining big tech and like before I was in academia, I was in university. During the pandemic, we worked remotely as well. So I guess like it didn't really change that much. But then like in tech, the remote technology or the software and tools that we're using is quite different from academia. Um, I guess it's more robust, and yeah, a lot of the things that are like relating to collaboration is done well, like in tech, and they're using a lot of amazing tools, like Slack or Notion, and yeah, several others, Zoom, and I know it might sound like basic, but yeah, it's pretty powerful if you think about it.
Cool. Wow. Awesome. I was curious, what is your favorite part about, working in tech? Like, what are your favorite perks? And if you don't mind, like, can you also share like some cons as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. Perks, well, I guess it's for one thing, it's like, like if it's job related, it's the content that you're able to learn. And when you create, it's quite similar to when I was doing YouTube on the side. But the interesting thing is that now I'm doing that full time and I'm getting paid to
Mhm.
do that. So yeah, it's for one, it's like we're learning new things every day, and like getting to take that new idea and new technology that I'm learning and implementing it, and um, yeah, teaching. I love teaching, so yeah,
Mhm.
creating content tutorials and like giving talks is very fun for me. Another good perks is I guess the pay is pretty good in tech as well,
Nice.
and yeah, it's uh, I think a lot of the people would find tech as being financially rewarding, and yeah, other than that, I guess it's the cool people that we meet, like being able to interview you or you interview me is it's an awesome experience, and yeah, getting to learn about like like our peers from another part of the world and how they are working, and yeah, that's quite amazing.
Nice, nice. Awesome, cool. Well, that's pretty much it for this interview. Chanin, do you have anything last minute stuff that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, so yeah, if you're interested more in data science or bioinformatics, you can check out my YouTube channel called The Data Professor. I also have a second YouTube channel called Coding Professor. And yeah, you could connect with me on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is the data prof. So it's data prof. And yeah, you could also reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, thanks, Vincent, for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, cool. All the links that Chanin mentioned, I'll put it in the description. But yeah, thank you for your time, Chanin, and everyone have a good day.
Yeah,